Let's talk about Billy Hargrove from the show Stranger Things. At first glance, Billy is easy to hate. He's the new guy in Hawkins, driving a cool car, with a dangerous smile and a temper that explodes into violence without much warning. He bullies other kids, he's cruel, and he's particularly nasty to Lucas Sinclair, one of the boys in the main friend group. The show makes it very clear that Billy doesn't like Lucas because Lucas is black. Billy calls him names, tries to keep him away from his little sister Max, and even tries to run him over with his car. It's ugly, straightforward racism. But the show does something interesting with Billy. It doesn't just make him a one-dimensional villain. Instead, it uses his character to show us how racism is not something people are born with, but a poison they learn, often in a home filled with its own kind of violence and fear. To understand Billy's prejudice, we have to look at where he came from, the lessons he was taught, and the cycle of abuse he was trapped in. Billy and his stepsister Max moved to Hawkins from California. We don't see much of their life there, but we get a crucial, terrifying glimpse into Billy's home life when his father, Neil, comes into the picture. Neil is the real monster in Billy's story. He is a man who rules his household with an iron fist, demanding absolute obedience and a very specific, narrow idea of what it means to be a man. He is physically and emotionally abusive, shouting at Billy, belittling him, and using violence to enforce his will. In one of the show's most powerful scenes, Neil confronts Billy after Billy stayed out too late. Neil doesn't just yell, he gets in Billy's face, threatening him, and the fear in Billy's eyes is complete and total. This is the key to everything. Billy is a victim of a brutal cycle of abuse. He is scared, and he has learned that in his world, power is everything. The only way to feel any sense of control, to avoid his father's wrath, is to become the bully himself outside the home. He mimics the behavior he sees. His father uses strength and dominance to control him, so Billy uses strength and dominance to control everyone else. He becomes the aggressor because it's the only role model he has. So, where does the racism come in? It's woven into this toxic lesson about power and identity. Neil doesn't just teach Billy to be tough, he teaches him a hierarchy. In Neil's worldview, there is a right way to be and a wrong way to be. We see this when Neil criticizes Billy's long hair and his disrespectful attitude. Neil is enforcing a rigid, traditional, and intolerant standard. While the show doesn't show Neil using racial slurs, his mentality is the perfect breeding ground for prejudice. Racism is often about asserting superiority and maintaining a social order. For someone like Billy, who is desperately trying to prove his worth and his strength to a father who constantly tears him down, targeting someone who is different becomes an easy shortcut. Lucas represents a difference that Billy can latch onto. By putting Lucas down, by trying to exclude him, Billy is trying to lift himself up. He's saying, "I may be nothing at home, but out here, I'm above you." His racism isn't a deeply held political belief, it's a tool of cruelty he uses to feel the power he is so brutally denied by his father. It's a way to fit into the warped idea of being strong and superior that Neil has beaten into him. This is what makes Billy a tragic figure and a perfect case study in how prejudice is passed down. He didn't invent these hateful ideas. He absorbed them from an environment where love was conditional, where violence was normal, and where being better than someone else was a survival tactic. His hatred towards Lucas is a learned behavior, a twisted symptom of a much deeper disease, which is the abuse he suffers. He is repeating a cycle. The show pushes us to see this connection. When Billy is possessed by the Mind Flayer in Season 3, it's a dark metaphor for this very idea. He was already being controlled by the poisonous influence of his father, a human monster, so it's tragically fitting that a literal monster then takes over his body. The real Billy was already a prisoner. The most important moment for understanding Billy comes right at the end of his life. When the Mind Flayer has him cornered at the Starcourt Mall. It's the memories of his mother, of a time of pure love and innocence before his father corrupted his world, that allow him to break free for just a second. He sacrifices himself to save 11 and the others. This moment is crucial because it shows us that the hateful, violent Billy wasn't the whole person. Buried deep underneath all that learned aggression and prejudice was a scared little boy who just wanted his mum, who just wanted to be loved. The show argues that if that boy had been nurtured, had been shown kindness and tolerance, he might have turned out completely different. His racism wasn't an inherent part of him, it was a scar, a piece of armor he put on to survive his own personal hell. In the end, Billy's story is a sad lesson about the roots of hatred. It teaches us that people who are filled with prejudice are often people who have been deeply hurt themselves. This doesn't excuse their actions at all. Billy's behavior was awful and caused real pain, especially to Lucas. Understanding is not the same as forgiving, but it helps explain it. It shows that racism is a social illness, taught in homes and communities, fueled by fear and a desperate need for power. By showing us Billy's father, the show points a finger at the real source of the problem, not just the individual who acts on hate, but the systems and the people who teach that hate in the first place. Billy was a victim who became a victimizer. His story tells us that to stop cycles of prejudice, we have to look at the environments that create them. We have to interrupt the lesson before it is learned. Billy Hargrove is a warning, a tragic example of how a human being can be twisted by cruelty into becoming cruel themselves, carrying forward a legacy of pain and intolerance that they never asked for, but never learned how to put down. His redemption was a flicker of that lost good inside him, proving that what was learned could, perhaps, have been unlearned, if only someone had reached out with a different, kinder lesson to teach.